Hi, Andrew. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Benjamin? Do you mind if I call you
Good.
Benjamin or Ben?
Either's good. Either's good. Great to meet you, and thank you so much for this.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. So I just wanted to first ask, Swan Song is a great film. Congratulations on it.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and it just seems so personal. What was like the inspiration behind this story for you?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that it felt that way in a way because it really was. It was a few years ago, I lost three friends 3 summers in a row when I was 19, 20, and 21, and that experience and seeing the waves of grief that sort of spread out from that to everyone who was left behind, to friends, family, and just not getting a goodbye. I think it led to me on an almost daily basis, just worrying about what would happen to, you know, me if a loved one were to pass away, what would happen to my loved ones if something were to happen to me. It just sort of became almost this like obsessive thought thing, and then eventually an idea like Swan Song comes up, and you get excited about the premise because it's really exciting, and then you realize like you're you're mining back into the painful stuff that it's happened to you. So you're totally right. It came from a really personal place, and although the movie is totally imagined premise, of course, it does have that in it, you know.
Yeah, and the whole sci-fi aspect of this, there's some of this high concept sci-fi, and I was just wondering, what made you want to set this film, in the near future? It doesn't seem too far away, but it's definitely futuristic.
Yeah, well, I think when you've got a premise like this where he Cameron has got this terminal disease, and he's got a chance to duplicate himself to save his family the bereavement of his passing without them knowing, and then has to decipher if this duplicate truly is an authentic version of him, right? And you know, through that process, I knew I was going to be able to interweave a love story. And actually, although the film's talking about loss and grief, actually, we were going to be able to explore the sort of fleeting beauty of our time here and look at the whole breadth of a life, and a meditation on memory and trust and identity and all of those things. So the sci-fi element was important because it was the cornerstone of the premise. And as part of that, I had to do enough world building and work with my wonderful production designer Annie Bouchamp to create a world where, as a viewer, right, when we're looking at it and we're in the movie, we need to believe that this technology could feasibly exist, right? So we sort of are absorbed into the story, but at the same time, because of all these human elements, right, that the story is really about, I never wanted it to be set so far in the future that we didn't recognize the world. So you want the technology to be a click or two ahead rather than something that feels, like I never wanted the lab to look like the inside of a spaceship. I didn't want all these screens. It was really important to me that we didn't have these long scenes about them talking about all the technology behind it, because that's not what the movie's about. It's sort of, I really wanted to be in Cameron's subjective experience about it. And that was really what he was going through emotionally, not about the sort of scientific makeup of the inner workings.
You mentioned the sci-fi elements. Are there any films that influenced you at all in particular?
In terms of the sci-fi,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I loved Her by Spike Jones. I thought was just an amazing vision for what a near future world could look like, with telling just a totally human story. I've always loved like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's got that sort of sci-fi element, but again, um, Charlie Kaufman, the writer, chose to focus more. I mean, and obviously it's kind of comedic as well, but chose to not dip into the science. Like I never would have wanted to have watched that movie and I've gotten really deep into all the inner workings of the science because really it was about that relationship, right? So yeah, I think movies like that are definitely an inspiration to try and tell stories that may have a scientific element to them or a sci-fi element to them, but actually they're really human explorations.
And during Cameron's last little go around his house, I noticed he picks up a little paper mache animal. I didn't know, is that a reference to Blade Runner or was that just a coincidence?
I mean, things in the movie that you put in, you leave to the audience to sort of see if they find any connections. You know, there's you put little fun things in the film, and if they're picked up on or people find their own meaning in them, you know, that's kind of cool. Or why is it an armadillo? That he makes. You know, there's little Easter eggs I think in the movie, and for me, every inch of the screen, you know, where possible, is important.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask, the scenes in the forest, at the lab and stuff, where were those filmed? It's beautiful shots.
Yeah, we filmed up in Vancouver, and the house was actually part on location, the upper floors, and then we built all of the lower floors on stage. But we shot up in Vancouver, beautiful part of the world up there.
Yeah, and during the scenes where there's, Cameron's looking at this other copy version of himself, how did you guys accomplish that? Was there, stand-ins or deep fakes or anything like that?
Yeah, so we had Mahershala had Shane Dean was an actor who played across from him as his double. And we, in a way, you've got to take each scene and each setup as it comes, and sometimes there's different methods for how you do it. I think the remarkable thing was watching Mahershala navigate from you know, in terms of performance and the two different characters, like they look completely identical. So he had to find those internal differences, right, which are to do with their different contexts that they're both facing. One is terminally ill and doesn't have long left. The other, you know, doesn't have this illness, but is waiting on his original to give him permission or not. So there's a power struggle really subtly happening there. And both of them are actually facing, you know, they both want the same thing ultimately, which is to try and protect the family, but they're in these different situations. And I think the way he masterfully found those little subtle nuances and differences was amazing. So for me, it was really about trying to find the way to shoot the double scenes in ways where, as much as possible, we could get out of the way and not have too many technical tricks. You know, I really tried to free it up so that Mahershala's acting could shine through in those scenes. But we use all the usual stuff, the, you know, split screen things, you know, stitching, two shots. We didn't use any motion and control. I elected not to do that because I, sort of to my point a second ago, I didn't want the technicals to take up, you know, too much time, and motion control is something that can be quite cumbersome and can take a while. We did use a repeatable head in a couple of shots and a couple of scenes, like the dog scene, the pan over when he comes down the stairs and the dog sees him. No spoilers, I guess, but that was a thing where I wanted to use a repeatable head because there was a technical nature to the movement that felt very precise, and I felt like we needed it there. But wherever possible, we really tried to do it in a simple way, a lot of over the shoulder stuff and things like that.
Great. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Hope everybody catches Swan Song on Apple TV Plus on December 17th. Thank you again so much, Benjamin.
Thank you so much. That was great. Appreciate it. Cheers.